following video is an educational analysis of the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. It contains historical accounts, real-life examples, and interpretive commentary. Any resemblance between the stories told here and the lives of individuals today is coincidental. This content is not intended as personal advice, nor does it promote deception, harm, or unethical behavior. The purpose of this video is to explore ideas, strategies, and lessons from history, to examine how power has been gained, lost, and wielded across time. Viewers are encouraged to think critically, reflect independently, and apply these lessons with wisdom and responsibility. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Machiavelli.
Imagine walking into a room full of strangers. Everyone is dressed a certain way, speaking a certain way, moving according to unwritten rules. You notice yourself thinking differently from them, perhaps even disagreeing with what they all seem to accept without question. In your mind, you hold a thought that feels sharper, more honest, more original. But here's the dilemma. Do you share it openly? Do you show them exactly how different you are? Or do you keep that thought to yourself and present a version of yourself that aligns with the group? This moment, this tension, is where Law 38 lives. Think as you like, but behave like others. At first, this sounds deceptive, maybe even cowardly. But look closer. This law is not telling you to abandon your inner beliefs or sacrifice your originality. It tells you that true power often comes from knowing the difference between what you think and what you reveal. It's about protecting your independence of mind while ensuring that your outward behavior does not isolate you, provoke unnecessary resistance, or make you a target. You can think anything, the boldest, strangest, most radical thoughts, but the world judges you on your behavior. And in the game of power, behavior is the currency others use to measure your reliability, your predictability, your place in the social order. This law is easy to misunderstand, so let's clear up the common misconceptions before we go further. Some people hear it and assume it's about being fake, about never showing who you really are. That's not the essence of it. The law doesn't demand you suppress your individuality forever. Instead, it demands that you master the art of timing and presentation. When the moment is safe, when you've built trust, when the audience is ready, then your unique thoughts can be unveiled. But do it too soon, too brazenly, and you risk rejection before your ideas ever have a chance to survive. Another misconception, that behaving like others means becoming invisible, blending in so much that you erase yourself. Again, not so. The point is not to erase your identity, but to give it a protective shell. Think of it as camouflage. The soldier in the field doesn't stop being himself just because he wears the same uniform as the rest of his unit. The uniform protects him, allows him to move without drawing fire. Your behavior, when aligned with the norms around you, serves the same purpose. It shields your mind while you nurture it privately. And a final misconception, that this law is inherently manipulative, cynical, or morally wrong. In truth, this law is about survival and strategy. Social groups punish deviation not because they are evil, but because it threatens cohesion. From ancient tribes to modern corporations, humans rely on conformity to create stability. To behave like others while thinking freely inside is not a betrayal of authenticity. It is an acknowledgement of reality. You are not giving up your mind. You are protecting it until the right moment. So the stage is set. Law 38 is about balance, the balance between independence of thought and social conformity of action. It is about knowing when to reveal and when to conceal. It is about timing, subtlety, and discipline. And over the next 30 minutes, we are going to dissect this law in detail. Through psychological foundations, historical examples, modern case studies, ethical trade-offs, and practical strategies you can use in your own life. By the end, you will understand not only what this law demands, but how to wield it like a weapon, carefully, intelligently, and with full awareness of its consequences. This is not fantasy. This is the raw, realistic terrain of human power. To understand why this law exists, we need to look at human psychology. Why do people insist that others behave like them? Why does society punish difference even when it is harmless? The answer lies deep in our evolutionary past and in the fragile machinery of social life. For most of human history, survival depended on belonging to a tribe. Alone, you could not hunt effectively, protect yourself from predators, or raise children. To be excluded from the group was to face death. This primal truth left a permanent imprint on our psychology. Even today, thousands of years later, rejection by the group triggers fear, anxiety, even pain. Scientists have found that social rejection activates the same regions of the brain as physical pain. Being different in behavior threatens our sense of belonging, and so the group instinctively moves to crush it. This is why conformity becomes the default rule of human behavior. Look around you in any setting, an office, a classroom, a neighborhood, and you will see it. People dress in similar ways, use similar language, laugh at the same jokes, and share similar opinions. Some of this is innocent imitation, but much of it is self-protection. By mirroring others, we signal, I belong. You can trust me. I am safe. The pressure to conform is subtle but powerful. Consider the classic experiments by psychologist Solomon Asch in the 1950s. In one of his studies, participants were asked to judge the length of lines on a card. When Confederates in the group deliberately gave the wrong answer, many participants went along with them, even though the truth was obvious. They betrayed their own perception just to avoid standing out. Think about that. The fear of appearing different was stronger than the evidence of their own eyes. That is how deep the instinct runs. Another layer of this is predictability. People prefer to deal with those whose behavior they can anticipate. Predictability breeds trust, and trust is the foundation of cooperation. When someone acts unpredictably, others feel threatened. Even small deviations, dressing too strangely, speaking too bluntly, ignoring unwritten rules, can trigger suspicion. The group begins to whisper, "What else might this person do? Can we rely on them?" Often, the punishment for such deviation is exclusion or marginalization. The social sciences have given us countless examples. In workplaces, employees who openly challenge every policy or flaunt their difference are rarely promoted, no matter how talented they are. In schools, children who refuse to conform are often bullied or isolated. In politics, leaders who defy every convention without tact or timing may inspire briefly, but they rarely endure. The group rewards stability and cohesion more than raw originality, and here we reach the heart of Law 38. To think differently is not the problem. The world needs new ideas, bold insights, unconventional minds, but to behave differently without sensitivity to context invites attack. Society demands the outward appearance of conformity because it protects the group. It doesn't care what you think so long as you do not openly disrupt the shared rituals of behavior. This is why revolutions are rare and why innovators so often face ridicule before they are celebrated. Their thoughts may be ahead of their time, but if their behavior signals too much difference, the world sees them as dangerous. The lesson for us is clear. Independence of thought must be shielded by conformity of action. Your mind is your fortress, but your behavior is your disguise. Take the example of Galileo Galilei. He thought as he liked, developing theories that contradicted the church's teaching about the cosmos. But his willingness to behave differently, to publish, to speak boldly, brought him into direct conflict with the Inquisition. He was forced to recant publicly, spending the rest of his life under house arrest. His ideas survived, but his freedom did not. Imagine if Galileo had cloaked his radical thought in more acceptable behavior. Perhaps he could have advanced his theories more slowly, more strategically, and avoided personal ruin. The brilliance of his mind was undeniable, but the brazenness of his behavior destroyed his power. Psychology tells us that we live with two selves, the inner self and the social self. The inner self is free, boundless, full of private convictions and desires. The social self is constrained, polished, shaped by the expectations of others. Power comes from knowing how to balance the two. Those who reveal too much of their inner self too quickly invite attack. Those who suppress it entirely may survive, but they lose their originality, their essence. The wise learn to protect the inner self with the mask of the social self. In practical terms, this means recognizing that there are spaces where you can safely reveal your thoughts, and spaces where you cannot. Among close friends, trusted allies, or in private journals, your inner self can be free. But in the public square, at work, in negotiations, or on social media, your behavior must be measured. You do not owe the world your unfiltered self. You owe yourself the chance to survive and thrive long enough to put your ideas into action. So as we move forward into real-world examples, keep this in mind. People rarely punish you for what you think. They punish you for how you behave. And until you master this distinction, you will always risk losing your place in the game of power. History is filled with examples of brilliant minds who could not resist showing the world how different they were, and who paid the price for it. Perhaps one of the clearest comes from the reign of Louis XIV of France, the Sun King, who understood the subtle rules of conformity better than most, and who punished those who defied them. At his court in Versailles, power was not simply about politics or military might. It was about appearances, rituals, manners. Every nobleman and noblewoman had to move, speak, and even dress according to the codes set by the king. These codes were not trivial. They were the very structure of power. To deviate from them was to invite suspicion, ridicule, or exile from the court. Enter Nicolas Fouquet, the finance minister of France in the mid-17th century. Fouquet was brilliant, ambitious, and creative. He thought differently from his peers, and he wanted the world to see it. To show off his wealth and taste, he built the magnificent chateau of Vaux-le-Vicomte, a palace so stunning that even Versailles looked modest in comparison. When the chateau was completed, Fouquet threw a lavish party for the king and the entire court. The food was exquisite, the gardens breathtaking, the entertainment beyond anything seen before. Fouquet wanted to show that he was not only loyal to the king, but also indispensable, a man of vision and means. But in doing so, Fouquet forgot the essence of Law 38. He did not behave like others. He thought differently and revealed it openly through spectacle and extravagance. Instead of impressing the king, he alarmed him. Louis XIV saw Fouquet's display as arrogance, as an implicit challenge to his supremacy. Within weeks, the king had Fouquet arrested on charges of embezzlement. Fouquet was tried, convicted, and condemned to life imprisonment in the fortress of Pignerol, where he would die decades later. Think about what happened here. Fouquet's thoughts, his vision, his creativity, his originality were not the problem. France benefited from his talents. But his behavior, so openly at odds with the norms of deference and modesty expected in the presence of the king, made him a target. Had he hidden his brilliance behind the mask of conformity, behaving like others while pursuing his ideas quietly, he might have risen even higher. Instead, his refusal to cloak his difference led to his downfall. The contrast is sharp when we look at Jean-Baptiste Colbert, who replaced Fouquet as finance minister. Colbert was equally ambitious and equally intelligent, but he behaved differently. He masked his originality behind obedience and modesty, always appearing as a loyal servant of the king. While Fouquet flaunted, Colbert blended. And in doing so, Colbert gained the king's trust, holding power for decades and shaping the finances of France in ways that endured long after his death. The story of Fouquet and Colbert is a clear reminder of Law 38. Thinking differently is not enough, and it is not safe. To survive and thrive in the game of power, one must learn to disguise independence of thought with the cloak of conformity. Show too much of your difference too soon and you risk everything. Mask it and you gain the time and trust needed to turn your ideas into lasting influence. This pattern repeats across history. Those who flaunt their difference are punished. Those who master the art of camouflage endure. Consider also the fate of Giordano Bruno, the Italian philosopher who pushed beyond Copernican theory to suggest that the universe was infinite and filled with countless worlds. His thoughts were revolutionary, but his behavior was reckless. He openly mocked religious orthodoxy, ridiculed the authorities, and refused to temper his words. The Inquisition burned him at the stake in 1600. Compare this to Isaac Newton, who also held radical ideas about the universe. Newton shared his findings with caution, framing them in ways that conformed to accepted traditions, weaving scripture and faith into his language. His ideas survived because his behavior did not provoke the same wrath. What do these stories teach us? That originality of thought is dangerous when paired with reckless behavior. That conformity in behavior is not weakness but strategy. And that survival in the arena of power depends not only on what you think but on how you act, how you present, how you cloak yourself in the expectations of others. So when you feel the urge to show how different you are, remember Nicolas Fouquet. His chateau still stands, a monument to brilliance and ambition. But he himself spent his final days in a stone prison cell, exiled from the very world he sought to impress. His fate was not sealed by his thoughts, but by his inability to behave like others. What lessons can we draw from Nicolas Fouquet, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, Giordano Bruno, and Isaac Newton? These men lived in different centuries, under different rulers in different disciplines, yet their fates reveal the same principle. Society does not punish the thoughts you keep to yourself, but it will punish the behaviors that reveal them. Fouquet had brilliance, vision, and taste, but he lacked restraint. He believed that by showing his magnificence, he would prove his worth. Instead, he revealed too much of his independence, too much of his difference, and the king perceived it as a threat. In the eyes of Louis XIV, Fouquet was not a loyal servant but a rival. His downfall was not the result of his ideas, but of his choice to act them out in ways that broke the social code of conformity. Colbert, on the other hand, understood that thoughts must be hidden behind behavior. He no doubt had his own private convictions, ambitions, and strategies, but in public he was modest, deferential, predictable. He behaved like others even as he outthought them in private. This earned him trust, longevity, and the power to shape the financial destiny of France for decades. His restraint became his weapon. The story of Bruno and Newton sharpens the contrast further. Bruno burned because he could not temper his behavior. He voiced his theories with open contempt for tradition, mocking those who disagreed. He gave the church no choice but to crush him as an enemy. Newton, just as revolutionary in his thinking, moved carefully. He used familiar language, framed his ideas in ways that reassured rather than threatened, and chose his timing with precision. He behaved within the accepted norms, while his thoughts quietly reshaped the world. Bruno perished. Newton triumphed. The first lesson here is simple. Originality is safest when cloaked in conformity. If you have radical thoughts, hold them close until you have the trust, reputation, or power to unveil them without destruction. Do not reveal them prematurely. The second lesson: behavior is the stage upon which society judges you. It does not have access to your mind, your inner world, your private convictions. It only sees what you do, how you move, how you speak, how you dress. This is what people use to decide whether you belong, whether they can trust you, whether you are a threat. If your behavior strays too far from the norm, even harmlessly, others will move against you. The third lesson: timing is everything. Fouquet revealed his magnificence too soon, before he had secured unshakable loyalty from the king. Bruno declared his visions too openly before the culture was ready. Colbert and Newton waited, disguised, maneuvered. They revealed themselves only when the foundation was secure. If you want your originality to survive, learn to master the rhythm of concealment and revelation. And finally, the fourth lesson: power often belongs not to the most brilliant thinker, but to the one who manages the performance of conformity most skillfully. Colbert was not necessarily wiser than Fouquet, nor was Newton inherently more visionary than Bruno. But they mastered the art of behaving like others while nurturing their originality privately. They were not punished for their difference because they knew how to cloak it. For you, the viewer, the takeaway is profound. You may have thoughts that are radical, unconventional, even dangerous in the eyes of those around you. You may see truths that others are blind to, but you must resist the urge to reveal them carelessly. If you behave like others, dressing, speaking, and moving within the expectations of your environment, you will earn the time and space to protect your originality. You can keep your independence intact while avoiding unnecessary battles. This does not mean you must live in disguise forever. It means you must be strategic. Do not show your hand too soon. Do not assume others will admire your difference. Remember that society values stability over brilliance, predictability over originality. To win, you must learn to give people the stability they crave while protecting the brilliance you carry. The stories of Fouquet, Colbert, Bruno, and Newton remind us that power does not go to the loudest or the most radical. It goes to the one who knows how to play the game of appearances. Think as you like, yes, but behave like others until the world is ready, or until you have the strength to survive its rejection. History offers us dramatic stories of kings, philosophers, and inquisitions. But to see how Law 38 operates today, we don't have to look back centuries. We can look at the modern business world, at politics, at culture. The principle remains the same. Those who think differently but behave like others survive and thrive. Those who expose their difference recklessly are punished, often brutally. Take the case of Howard Schultz, the man who built Starbucks into a global empire. Schultz thought differently about coffee. While others saw it as a simple beverage, he saw it as an experience, a third place between home and work. This vision was radical at the time. But notice how he behaved while building it. He did not walk into every meeting telling investors they were wrong or ridiculing the conventional coffee business. He dressed like a businessman, spoke in the language of profit and scalability, and built trust with bankers, partners, and shareholders by behaving exactly as they expected. Inside, he nurtured his radical vision. Outside, he moved in step with the norms of the business world. And because he did, his vision survived long enough to reshape an entire industry. Now contrast that with Adam Neumann, the founder of WeWork. Neumann also had a radical vision: to redefine office spaces as we spaces, blending community, lifestyle, and work. The idea was bold and in some ways innovative. But Neumann could not resist behaving differently. He presented himself as a guru rather than a disciplined entrepreneur. He cultivated a lifestyle of extravagance, spoke in vague spiritual terms to investors, and ignored the rituals of conventional business behavior. While Schultz cloaked his originality in conformity, Neumann flaunted his difference. At first, people were intrigued, but soon the lack of predictability eroded trust. Investors panicked, the company collapsed, and Neumann's empire crumbled. His vision may have been unconventional, but it was his reckless behavior that destroyed him. We can see the same pattern in politics. Consider Barack Obama's rise to power. Obama's thoughts were unconventional for American politics at the time. A mix of progressive policies, nuanced diplomacy, and a call for unity that cut across traditional lines. But his behavior was measured. He dressed conservatively, spoke with calm authority, and projected stability. To many voters, his demeanor reassured them even as his ideas pushed boundaries. He thought as he liked, but behaved like the politicians before him. This balance earned him trust and ultimately the presidency. Now compare that with someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whose radical ideas, whether one agrees with them or not, have often been overshadowed by the perception of her behavior. Her outspoken style, confrontational tweets, and rejection of traditional decorum have made her a target of intense backlash. Whether her ideas succeed in the long run remains to be seen, but the hostility she faces comes less from the content of her policies, and more from the way she behaves publicly. In the game of power, her difference is not cloaked but broadcast, and that comes with severe costs. The entertainment industry gives us another illustration. Think of Lady Gaga in her early career. Her thoughts about music and performance were avant-garde, shocking, even bizarre. But notice how carefully she controlled her behavior in interviews and business negotiations. She played the part of the hard-working professional, polite to producers, gracious to collaborators, disciplined in her work ethic. On stage, she was outrageous, but off stage, she behaved like others in her industry. This duality allowed her eccentric originality to flourish without alienating the networks of power she needed to sustain her career. Contrast that with someone like Kanye West. Kanye's mind is undeniably original, creative, and bold, but his behavior has increasingly broken with the expectations of the public and the industry. Interrupting award shows, controversial public statements, erratic social media posts. These behaviors, not his thoughts, have cost him alliances, endorsements, and trust. The punishment is not for originality of mind, but for recklessness of action. Modern business, politics, and entertainment all reveal the same pattern that Versailles and the Inquisition once did. Those who cloak their independence of thought in conformity of behavior endure. They may slowly inject their originality into the system, changing it from within. Those who expose their difference too openly, too soon, provoke resistance and risk ruin. The lesson here is not to be bland or fake. It is to be strategic. Schultz was not bland. Obama was not bland. Lady Gaga was not bland. They were original, but they were also careful. They knew when to perform stability, when to behave like others, and when to let their originality slip through in ways that the world was ready to accept. Newman, Ocasio-Cortez, Kanye. Their brilliance was undercut by behavior that the world read as threatening, erratic, or reckless. Power is not only about what you think or what you create. It is about how you deliver it, how you dress it, how you pace it. Radical ideas are fragile. To survive, they must be clothed in the armor of conformity until they are strong enough to stand on their own. Now that we've seen this law play out in courts, corporations, and culture, the question becomes, how do you actually use it? What does it mean to think as you like but behave like others in practical everyday terms? Let's break it down into strategies you can carry with you. Strategies that protect your originality without exposing you to unnecessary risk. The first tactic is observe before you act. When you enter a new environment, a workplace, a social group, a classroom, resist the temptation to stand out immediately. Spend time watching. Notice how people dress, how they speak, what they value. What jokes do they laugh at? What topics make them uncomfortable? What rituals do they repeat? By observing, you map the invisible rules of the group. Once you understand those rules, you can navigate them without stumbling into unnecessary danger. The second tactic is mirror just enough. This doesn't mean losing your identity, it means adopting surface behaviors that signal belonging. Dress in a way that fits the environment, even if privately your style is different. Use the language your group uses, even if your own vocabulary is broader. Adjust your tone to the room. This light mirroring disarms suspicion. People see you as predictable, safe, part of the tribe, and once they trust you, they become more open to the originality you may reveal later. The third tactic: choose your moments carefully. Not every idea needs to be expressed. Not every difference needs to be shown. Ask yourself, what do I gain by revealing this now? What do I risk? If the risk outweighs the reward, keep your thought private. Remember, your originality loses nothing by remaining in your mind. It is preserved, waiting for the right opportunity. But if you reveal it prematurely, you may never get another chance. The fourth tactic: wrap your difference in familiarity. When you do decide to share an unconventional thought, frame it in terms people already understand. Use metaphors, examples, or references that are familiar. This reduces resistance. People are less threatened by originality when it arrives dressed in language they already trust. Think of Newton, cloaking his theories in the language of scripture, or Howard Schultz, framing his vision for Starbucks in the language of profit and scalability. Originality is easier to accept when it feels familiar on the surface. The fifth tactic: create private sanctuaries for your true self. You cannot suppress your originality forever without suffocating. To stay sane, you need spaces where you can be fully authentic, with close friends, trusted allies, or in solitude. These sanctuaries are where you nurture your true thoughts, refine them, and prepare them for the world. Without them, you risk losing yourself in endless conformity. The law does not demand you become hollow. It demands that you be strategic about when and where you reveal your fullness. The sixth tactic: control the timing of revelation. Imagine you have a radical idea for your company. If you share it immediately before building trust or proving yourself, people may dismiss you or even sabotage you. But if you spend months behaving predictably, delivering reliable work, and earning credibility, then when you finally unveil your idea, people will listen. They will see it as the natural extension of someone they already trust. timing transforms originality from a threat into a gift. The seventh tactic, use conformity as camouflage for experimentation. When you behave like others outwardly, you often gain freedom inwardly. People stop watching you closely. They assume you are predictable. And in that safety, you can experiment privately, test your ideas quietly, and prepare your originality for the right stage. Conformity, then, is not the enemy of originality. It is its shield. And finally, the eighth tactic, separate the personal from the public. What you post online, what you say in meetings, how you present yourself in public spaces, these are performances. They do not have to reveal the entirety of who you are. Learn to draw the line between your inner convictions and your outer behavior. By doing so, you preserve your freedom while protecting your position. The most powerful people in history were often those who revealed only fragments of themselves, never the whole. Let's pause here. Think of your own life. Where are you tempted to show how different you are? Where are you pressured to behave like others? In which situations would revealing your true thoughts help you? And in which would it hurt you? These are the calculations of power. Master them and you will never again be punished for difference. Fail to master them and, like Nicolas Fouquet or Adam Neumann, you may see your originality turned into your downfall. Law 38 is not about betrayal or hypocrisy. It is about discipline, camouflage, and survival. Think as you like. No one can take that from you. But behave with awareness, and your thoughts will live long enough to change the world. Every law of power comes with a price, and Law 38 is no different. To think as you like but behave like others gives you protection, influence, and longevity, but it also carries hidden costs. If you follow this law blindly, you risk losing something just as important as survival. Your authenticity, your integrity, even your peace of mind. The first trade-off is the erosion of authenticity. When you consistently behave like others while hiding your true thoughts, you may begin to feel that you are living a double life. The mask becomes heavy. You smile when you want to frown. You nod when you want to argue. You conform when your heart screams for rebellion. Over time, this can create inner conflict, a gap between who you are privately and who you pretend to be publicly. Some people can manage this gap with discipline. Others feel it slowly eats away at their sense of identity. The second cost is the strain on relationships. If you constantly behave in ways that are socially acceptable but not true to your inner self, you may attract alliances built on a false image. People will like you for the mask, not the real you. And when the mask slips, as it inevitably does, those relationships can collapse. You may find yourself surrounded by people who do not truly know you and perhaps do not truly care for you. The third cost is the risk of self-censorship becoming permanent. At first, you tell yourself that you are merely postponing your originality, waiting for the right time to reveal it. But years can pass, and the right time never comes. The habit of suppression becomes ingrained. You no longer think of your originality as something to protect. You think of it as something to hide. And slowly you stop trying to express it at all. Many people reach the end of their lives realizing they conformed outwardly for so long that their inner voice went silent. That is the deepest tragedy of this law when misused. The fourth cost is mental and emotional exhaustion. Keeping up appearances requires energy. Always scanning for what others expect. Always adjusting your behavior to avoid suspicion. This can become tiring. In extreme cases, it can lead to anxiety, burnout, or a sense of alienation from oneself. The law protects you from external punishment, but it may create internal suffering if applied without care. Finally, the fifth cost is the danger of misjudging when to conform and when to rebel. If you conform too much, you become invisible. You are safe, but you are powerless, forgotten in the crowd. If you rebel too openly, you risk destruction. The art lies in balance. But the balance is difficult and mistakes can be costly. So when should you follow this law and when should you break it? The answer depends on context. In situations where survival, reputation, or safety are at stake, behaving like others is wise. In workplaces, in political environments, in cultures where deviation invites real punishment, conceal your originality. But in situations where authenticity creates connection, where showing your true self earns trust, where conformity would suffocate your soul, you must risk revealing who you are. The lesson is not that you should always behave like others. The lesson is that you should always make the choice consciously. Know the risks, weigh the costs, and decide with open eyes. Do not reveal your originality out of impulse or ego. Do not suppress it out of fear. Choose strategically. Sometimes the greatest power is in restraint, and sometimes the greatest power is in rebellion. Law 38 is a tool, not a commandment. Like any tool, it can be misused. If you wield it without awareness, you may survive but lose yourself. If you wield it with wisdom, you can protect your originality until it has the strength to shape the world. So ask yourself, what is the cost of behaving like others? What is the cost of revealing who I am? Between these two costs lies the delicate balance of power. We have journeyed through courts and corporations, through philosophy and politics, through success and ruin. And across every story, one truth has stood out. People rarely punish you for what you think. They punish you for how you behave. This is the essence of Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. What does this law ultimately mean for you? It means that originality of mind is not enough. Without discipline of behavior, originality becomes a liability. It means that to move through the world of power, you must learn to master appearances. Conformity is not surrender. It is camouflage, a shield that allows your independence to survive in hostile territory. But it also means that every choice carries a cost. Behave too much like others and you vanish into the crowd. Behave too differently and you invite attack. The art lies in knowing when to reveal and when to conceal, when to blend and when to stand apart. Power comes from timing, balance, and discipline. Now pause for a moment. Reflect on your own life. Think of the last time you felt the urge to reveal a thought that went against the grain. Did you hold it back or did you speak it aloud? What was the consequence? Did you gain influence or did you feel the sting of rejection? These moments are not trivial. They are the battlefield where Law 38 plays out. Ask yourself another question. Where do I wear a mask? At work, with family, among friends? Where do you behave like others even though your thoughts are different? Does the mask protect you or does it suffocate you? Does it buy you time or does it cost you your voice? These are not abstract questions. They are the calculations of survival. And finally, imagine the future. There will come a moment when your originality is ready, when the world needs to hear your difference. Will you have built the trust and credibility to reveal it safely? Or will you have squandered your chance by revealing too soon, too recklessly, and losing the stage before you ever had a chance to perform? Law 38 is not about cowardice. It is about patience. It is not about hypocrisy. It is about strategy. The world rewards those who can think freely while behaving predictably, who can protect their difference until it becomes their strength. If you learn this discipline, your originality will not just survive, it will endure long enough to reshape the world. So as you leave this lesson, carry two questions with you. First, what do I think that no one else dares to say? And second, how can I protect that thought until the time is right to reveal it? The answers will guide you in the delicate dance between authenticity and survival, between camouflage and revelation, between belonging and independence. Master this dance, and you will not only survive in the game of power, you will win. You have now seen the truth of Law 38. The world will never punish you for your hidden thoughts, but it will always judge you for your visible behavior. Guard your independence, protect your originality, and cloak it in the safety of conformity until the moment is right. Those who rush to expose themselves are destroyed. Those who wait, who observe, who calculate, they endure. Power is not only in what you know, it is in how you reveal it. Remember this law, for it will decide not just how the world sees you, but whether your ideas survive long enough to matter. Think as you like, behave like others, and when the time comes, reveal yourself with precision. Like, subscribe, comment, or don't. You are the master of your own life.